especially as we begin to think about Thanksgiving and Christmas. For some reason, it's a time or when I start to think about what are the important things of life and should I be focusing on. And today I wanted to, in that vein, think about what's essential here at Messiah Village and what are some of our basics. And one of the things that we have been talking about over the past 5 years or so that I think is a basic is what we call our principles of community life, how we want to live together, what we think is important as we're forming this community that we think of as Messiah Village. And so we talk about our 3 journeys or principles of community life: the journey together, the journey inward, and the journey outward. And I want to talk a bit about them today and just remind us of these basics of what we're about and what we're trying to accomplish and what's important. To do that, I'd like to focus on Romans 12. And I see Romans 12 as Messiah Village's chapter in the Bible. I don't know if you think of it that way, or if you have a chapter that you would say, that's Messiah Village, or that's what we're about. But for me, Romans 12 is one of the best chapters that tries to lay out, I think, what we're trying to do here, who we're trying to be, and can be guidelines, can be suggestions, recommendations, direction for what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. And I think Romans 12 helps us understand, reinforces these 3 journeys that we're on. And I want to start with reading portions of Romans 12. I won't be reading all of it today. It's a long chapter, but I would encourage you to read it and to think about these verses in terms of Messiah Village and our life together. But let me read some of the verses from Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then jumping down a few verses. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to us. And then Paul lists various gifts. Then moving down to verse 9. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. Serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And he goes on and talks some more about that. Well, I think there are different verses here that really help us better understand what we mean by the journey together, the journey inward, and the journey outward. And I just want to highlight some of those phrases or words that Paul uses that I think relate to the different journeys. And I'll start with the journey together. And by the journey together, we're talking about, we want this to be a place that celebrates who we are, what we're about, but offers hospitality, is respectful of each other, that includes people, and there's a sense of participation and involvement. That's what we mean by the journey together. We want people to feel a part of something, to feel a part of a community, to feel like they belong and that they're important within this community. And I think Paul talks about that, about having one body, many members. And I think that certainly is true for Messiah Village, that we're one place, or we want to feel like one place and be one larger community, but realizing we also have many different members. And that's why we also sometimes talk about being person-centered, community-minded. And to me, that's part of what Paul is talking about here in terms of one body, many members. Another aspect of being on a journey together is understanding that we have different gifts and how we can include people with different gifts, how we can use them, how they can help us be who we want to be, how they can help in a variety of ways. And Paul lists different gifts like serving and teaching, leading, giving, encouraging. And we need all those gifts as we journey together. And hopefully we can invite people so that everyone feels like their gift is being used. Another aspect of the journey together is sometimes we don't all agree, and sometimes there's conflict. And Paul talks about that and says, as far as possible, live in harmony or peace with each other. And sometimes I know that may stretch us. It may feel like that's a difficult thing to do. But Paul is asking, recommending, saying, if you want to be on a journey together, it's important as far as you can to extend yourself to live in peace and harmony. And I think there are two suggestions that Paul gives to help us do that. One is to show honor to others, to show deference to others over ourselves. That helps a lot in terms of living in harmony with each other, to try to honor the other, to understand the other. And another way that it builds community and harmony is when Paul talks about rejoicing with those who are rejoicing and weeping with those who weep. That there's a sense in which we can be present with others, we can experience what they're experiencing and not just what we're experiencing, but we can be with them. And so I think that's very important as well to this journey together. Well, we say that it's not only important to be on a journey together, but we also emphasize what we call the journey inward. And by that, we're saying that as individuals, we should also be growing, and growing in body, mind, and soul. That part of life is also who we are as individuals and our experience as individual persons. And I think Paul talks about this also, or focuses on this in terms of who we should be as individuals and what we should be about. And I think offers two things at the very beginning of Romans 12, where he talks about offering our bodies. And as we age, our bodies sometimes become a particular focus, and rightfully so. We're focused on physical aspects. And I think Paul may have some ideas and suggestions here of how we might offer our body as a sacrifice. And also, Paul talks about transforming our mind. As we're on an individual journey, we should be aware of our body and how we might enhance it and so forth. But also, he's talking about our mind, and that's important as well. In this part of life, in this stage of life, it's not only our bodies, but it's also our mind. He also then, I think, also talks some about our spirit as individuals, and says about that we should keep fervent, that some might translate that ardent, that we should be ardent in spirit. Or I was reading another translation that said, don't get burnt out, don't be discouraged and downtrodden, or overwhelmed, but keep fervent, keep ardent in spirit. And so that's important for us as individuals to find ways to do that, to encourage ourselves, to not allow ourselves to be burnt out. And he also talks about love being sincere or genuine. And so that should direct us as individuals rather than fear or hate. And so I think Paul would want to emphasize love over fear or hating. So there's this inward aspect to our community, to what we're about, to what we want to do. We want to help people in terms of their physical bodies. We want to help them transform their mind. We want them to be ardent in spirit. And finally, we also talk about the journey outward. That it's not just this community, it's not just individuals, but we also believe that aging at its best, or life at its best, is also reaching out. There's also an aspect of the journey outward, of serving others, of sharing with others, of being a part of a larger world. and not just focusing on ourselves. And so in the Journey Outward, we talk about sharing peace, wisdom, and service with others. And certainly in Romans 12, Paul talks about those aspects as well and highlights a number of different things related to our journey outward. He talks about sharing with those in need, talks about practicing hospitality. He also talks about blessing others, even our enemies, which is not something that we're inclined to do. But he's saying even with those maybe in our community or outside our community, that we should be thinking about how to bless them and serve them, even our enemies. That we're to do what is good, not evil. To find ways to reach out and to minister and relate to others. So we're not just to look inward, we're not just to grow as individuals, but we're also to have this sense of practicing hospitality, of blessing others, sharing with others. So this is what we have been trying to accomplish at Messiah Village, and I think there are many examples of how we're doing this. Certainly there are ways that we can improve and do it more, and I would encourage all of us to be thinking about that, to be imagining new ways that we can help each other be on a journey together, inward and outward. But I think Romans 12 gives us both some very practical advice on how to do that, as well as more inspirational advice on what that is about. I think one of the things that this says to me, or I want to just emphasize as well, is that Paul really wants people to be in relationship with themselves, with others, with the world around them, and with God. And there's the sense that relationships of connection is very important. And I think that's one of the things that we want to continue to find ways to do, to be a community. And we want to be a community more than an institution. It's easy for an organization of our size and what we do to become an institution or be an institution. And what we want to continue to remind ourselves is, no, we want to be a community. We want to be about connecting with people, connecting with God, connecting with the larger world around us. So hopefully as we continue to live this out, as we continue to try to be a community, Romans 12 can be helpful to us. Hopefully as we do that, we'll be a place of spirit, of energy, and it'll help us keep our soul. It'll help us keep what's most important and what's most vital to us, and actually to others, because I think other persons are also looking for vital and exciting ways to age, to live this time of life in new and exciting ways. And I think as we're on a journey together, inward and outward, we can model that, we can be that for ourselves and for others. So I invite you to continue to help us do that. And I'm grateful for the many ways that we are already doing this, and the many ways that residents and employees and others are helping us do this.